Sincero.
Desolate sea beaches, empty streets, claustrophobic apartments, and people whose inner emptiness complements the soul crushing silence of the outside. These are some of the most obvious images that one encounters in a Chilean film. Tinged with ambiguity and illusions, his films often come with a certain degree of abstraction, provocation without resolution of any sort. Also, there is a recurring presence of absence that bridges his images and ideas. And the scope of this video essay is to analyze Chilean's recurring preoccupation with absence, which is partly physical and partly figurative. Released in 1995, Chilean's debut work Cocoon is a silent film teeming with spectacular black and white photography. With a mere 20 minutes runtime, the film exemplifies many of the minimalist characteristics that eventually will become the most distinguishable traits in Chilean's oeuvre, especially its mournful silence and openness to many different interpretations. Eschewing any traditional linearity, the film de emphasizes on meaning, often suspends the narration, and challenges the viewer with a sequence of puzzles without any resolution. The ambiguity is primarily evoked by the non specification of the nature of relationship between the only three characters depicted in the film: an old man, an old woman, and a mysterious young boy. Chelan at the very beginning offers the assemblage of still photographs of the couple at their youth, and immediately we are tempted to form a conclusion. We imagine the elderly couple to be the one depicted in those photographs. The very stillness of the moving images followed are imbued with natural sounds, which episodically reveals the flora and fauna of this isolated territory. At the very end, we see a dead bird and a decomposing cat, elevating the presence of death and decay both in physical and spiritual sense. Bach's symphony in the background eloquently renders this couple's melancholic resignation and somehow binds the interspersed images with the symphony of nature. Chelan's provocation is further amplified by the kid's presence in the film, which again initiates a new inquiry regarding his relationship with the couple. The most obvious hypothesis would be he is the old man's grandchild. However, we have little to zero evidence on our hand to conclude so. After all, he has never been shown with the couple, not even once. The alternative assumption suggests that the boy is the old man himself and he is reminiscing his carefree past to find solace amidst a woeful present. However, another possibility lingers. The boy could be the couple's son, whose untimely death is the origin of the sorrow now hovering all over this isolated landscape. And it is this boy's grave that the old man visits later. Interesting to note that Chelan's imagery, no matter how profound they appear as cinematic montages, lack any coherent logic or temporal sequence. It leaves the burden of constructing a definite story out of these scrambled images completely to the viewer. Thus, in his very first film, the motive of absence corresponds to absence of conventionality, absence of meaning, or absence of narrative coherence of any sort. It attempts to foreground cinematic storytelling through the very absence of it. The ghost of a child, similar to the one we see in Cocoon, makes another haunting appearance in Three Monkeys and causes a spatio-temporal distortion in the film. In a world full of deception, lies, and spiritual crisis, the specter of this child opens up possible alternative courses of actions which now cannot be redeemed. In this anarchic haywire, home lacks intimacy, relationships rely on exchanges than trust, and any human endeavor lacks conscience. The characters find themselves stuck in a transgressive maze with no way out, where the absence of a moralistic value system echoes everywhere. The title itself flaunts Ceylan's sorrowful playfulness as it twists the analects of Confucius, where the three monkeys represent see no evil, speak no evil, and hear no evil. But what comes as a surprise is the absence of the fourth monkey that stands for do no evil. In Ceylan's first feature film, the theme of absence is crystallized through an intense yearning to be at somewhere else, a place which exists only in the depths of imagination but not in real life. The opening montage of the sights and relics of the small town creates a sense not of homesickness, rather of entrapment. The chilly winter has pervaded the town with a looming dread. Emptiness and insipid silence complements each other. Time altogether seems to have been elongated. Interestingly, Ceylan transmutes all these natural forces into a profound feel of longing. Longing for something elusive, homesickness for a home that is out of reach, goals that are unattainable. These aspects are eloquently rendered through stillness in the scene that takes place inside the children's classroom, lasting for nearly 10 minutes. The boredom, quietude, and passivity inside elevates a sense of resignation that has affected almost all the characters in the town.
Toplum hayatını düzenleyen kurallar. Toplum hayatının huzur, barış ve güvenlik içinde devamlılığı bir takım kurallara bağlıdır. Bunlar kişinin toplum içinde sadece kendini düşünerek sorumsuzca hareket etmesini engeller. Bizler toplum hayatındaki ilişkimizde kurallara konulmuş olan emir ve yasaklara uyarız. Aksi halde bir takım
As we can observe, the children, even though are tasked with reading from the textbook, have their minds lying somewhere beyond the class. The teacher too gazes through the opaque window of the classroom into the snowy abyss. We immediately wonder what can possibly bring this teacher into the confinement of this town? Probably he was reflecting on how different his life would have been if he had the opportunity to teach in a big city. Ceylan, in a stroke of genius, places him alongside the viewer as both ponder over lost opportunities and unrealized hopes. Absence as a sense of inability to escape finds its core expression in the family gathering by the forest. We are introduced to the character of Safed, who wanders aimlessly across the town accompanied by nothing but solitude. He longs for the life in a big city but lacks the educational qualification to settle there. Also, contrary to Safed's inability, there is a father who did have a chance to escape this rural claustrophobia by the virtue of education, but nevertheless has returned to this solitary confinement. Filled with resentment and frustration, they continue their perpetual scuffing with a melancholic absence of fulfillment.
Hafif gülümse bakayım. Biraz daha. Sessiz sessiz böyle kahkahayla. Şimdi dur. Şimdi biraz üzüleceksin, tamam mı? Somurt biraz. Somurt diyeceğine suratını at.
Clouds of May stages itself as the making of Ceylan's earlier films The Small Town and Cocoon. Here, this film within a film structure completely destabilizes the earlier films and reimagines those as fictionalized artificial compositions. The film is structured around Emin's son Muzaffar, who comes back from Istanbul to make an authentic film about his hometown. Safed reappears from his earlier film, now a bit more cheerful as he reads out film script to the supposed actors in the film that Muzaffar is making. Absence as a form of homesickness for a non-existing home has been further extended in Clouds of May through Muzaffar. He is bothered by a sense of withdrawal that has been rendered through a brief and intimate father-son moment. While Emin continuously walks in his land despite of his old age, Muzaffar simply relaxes in a chair. There is a sense of dislocation here. Muzaffar lacks any real connection with the land, unlike his father. His interest lies only in exploiting this land and its people as a subject for his film. This very absence of root that forms a spiritual bonding of a man to his land aids boredom to creep in. Even though out of guilt, Muzaffar does lend a hand for help in chopping in woods, his unawareness to do the job properly combines with his unwillingness and further intensifies the feel of absence despite of physical presence. In this stint, for the first time, absence emerges as the primary and pivotal subject in a Ceylan film. Absence is omnipresent as stillness in the snowbound scenes of Istanbul. Even though spectacular in appearance, those contain an excellent cinematic study of metropolitan ennui. Ceylan has effortlessly juxtaposed the seasonal coldness of the outside with the emotional coldness that thrives inside Mahmud's apartment, which is revealed by his lack of empathy for cousin Yusuf and unwillingness for communication. This inhospitable environment of home and the world only elevates Mahmud's complex resignation from life.
Bize derdin ki ben sınavaya geçip Tarkovski gibi filmler yapacağım.
O zaman niye kendini saklıyorsun ki bugünün için?
Oğlum
Niye
bitti
saklıyorsun?
bitti fotoğraf.
Hiçbir şey
kalmadı.
bitmedi.
Tamam.
Bittiği sen kabul
Dağlar
ediyorsun.
da bitti.
İnsanlar kendileriyle yaşar, kendileriyle ölür. Sen ölümünü çok erkenden ilan ettin abi.
The creative aspirations that brought him from rural claustrophobia to the grandness of Istanbul has long died as he is seen wrestling with a similar stagnation. In a very provocative episode, the specter of Mahmud's artistic ambition reappears when he takes Yusuf to a trip in Anatolia.
Vallahi tam fotoğraflık yer ha. Şu tepeden almak lazım. Önünde koyunlar bir de göl.
Kamerayı göreyim hemen. He? Mahmut abi.
Boş ver ya. Kim uğraşacak şimdi?
Ya ben vurarım hemen ya.
Boş ver ya.
Art is dead and absent, at least to Mahmud. That's the reason neither gorgeous landscape nor the snow-clad majestic beauty of Istanbul enchant him anymore. This episode is a manifestation of disappointment stemming out of unrealized aspirations. Contrary to Mahmud's stillness, Yusuf is in perpetual motion and the camera follows him with same enthusiasm as he traverses a frozen Istanbul. His bewilderment grows as he strolls through the streets with eyes unaccustomed to the metropolitan cityscape. Yusuf came to Istanbul to find a job after recession at his local factory. He intends to secure one at the dockyard and stares at the passing ships with tentative hope all the day. However, he seems to be more interested to take a tour through Istanbul, passing time in careless flirtation and random wandering without seriously thinking about a bleak future. Yusuf's sudden encounter with the wrecked ship is no coincidence by any means. There is a profound absence of purpose in life that equates him with Mahmud. Yusuf is Mahmud minus the intellectualism, or Mahmud is a sophisticated and battle-scarred version of Yusuf who is too worn out to even feel the pangs of absence anymore. If absence as a motive is most explicit and distant, it is nowhere as nihilistic as in Climates. The film revolves around the fractured relationship of Isa and Bahar, played by Nuri Ceylan and his wife Ebru Ceylan themselves. Isa is casual, indifferent, and cold, while Bahar is passionate, more sensible, and hence more vulnerable. However, Ceylan equates them by their shared sense of nihilism. In this spectacular scene, Bahar is closer to the shoreline and looks at the sea. While Isa remains buried in his book, he is alienated from the landscape even on a sunny day under perfect blue sky. Isa's world can be characterized by absence of idealism and Bahar's by absence of a world where she can pursue those ideals. And both are equally similar in their renunciation from enjoyment. After summer appears the second season autumn in Climates, but Isa remains unchanged in his false intimacies and non-commitment towards life. There are some startling similarities between him and Mehmet from Distant. However, there appears an episode with his ex-wife Serap which differentiates between the nihilistic tendencies of the two characters. Interesting to note that this brutal episode cuts directly to Isa's mother sewing a sweater for him, a sharp indication that unlike Mehmet, his world is still governed by desire and need. Unlike Mehmet, Isa finds absence and resignation comforting. Eventually, winter arrives with a subdued promise of reconciliation. Isa, even though claims to be a changed person, we are well informed not to believe him. Bahar already knows that it is impossible for a person like Isa to change who thrives in resignation and non-commitment. She blankly stares at the aeroplane flying overhead and carrying Isa back to Istanbul. The film soon ends and a new question regarding absence forms in its most intriguing sense, that is the very absence of the spring season from the film. Ceylan's wry sense of humor culminates in naming the character Bahar, which also translates to spring in Turkish. Like Climates, Ceylan's Palm d'Or winner Winter Sleep also revolves around an estranged couple living under the same roof. The film, wearing a Chekhovian envelope, houses an excellent critique of ideology through a dialectical interplay between silent contemplation and long conversations. We are introduced to three characters: Aydin, a retired stage actor and an intellectual, his wife Nihal, and his sister Nesla.
Ben olsam bu kadar cesur davranamazdım herhalde.
Hangi konuda?
Yani böyle
Aydin projects himself as a man of intellect yet bears narcissistic tendencies. His intellectual mediocrity lays bare in a confrontation with Nesla. However, his sister is no woman with a high spiritual tenacity, as a shallowness can be found in the value system she created based on her own tragic life experiences to deal with evil. Needless to mention about Sid's fallacy. Nihal, even though appears as a woman of substance, her self-belief too gets crushed in an extremely powerful scene of symbolic exchange at the third act.
Sağ olsun. Sebep?
Lütfen yanlış anlamayın. Özel bir sebebi yok. İhtiyacınız olduğunu düşündüğüm için ben şey yaptım. Eşyalarınızı geri almanız için.
Aydın Bey ne diyor bu işe?
Onun haberi yok. Bilmesine gerek de yok.
Güzel. Güzel. Yalnız bu para biraz fazla değil mi? Neye göre yani? Ne düşünerek özellikle bu kadar para getirdiniz?
Bakın ben hiçbir şey düşünmedim.
Nihal as a woman is intellectual enough to not confuse between materialistic prosperity and spiritual affluence, yet from the scene it is evident that she too makes the same mistake in hope for self-acceptance. At the end of Winter Sleep, this possibility of self-acceptance goes missing. It is absent and haunts both the on and off-screen spaces.
Savcı Bey. Alır mısınız? Kaymaklı bisküvi.
Ya komutan acıkmışız be. Alalım valla. Sağ ol.
Cemal Bey.
Yok sağ ol.
Once Upon a Time in Anatolia is ostensibly a film about search as we witness Dr. Jamal and prosecutor Nusret rummaging through the dark Anatolian wilderness in search of a buried body, guided by Kenan, the murderer himself. However, apart from these cinematic roles assigned against the characters, it is persistently hinted that Kenan, Jamal, and Nusret are allegorical representatives of vengeance, loss, and regret themselves. and Anatolia itself becomes a place where the human angst and insecurities turn palpable. From the very beginning, one can sense a storm looming over this endless grassland. However, there is another storm, evoked through its absentia, that is ravaging the consciousness of the characters. Here, Anatolian steppe is characterized by incipient emptiness and devoid of humanity, but also it is a place of buried secrets that puts light into the concealed alleyways of human psyche. This lifeless hinterland transcends from being just a narrative terrain into a mysterious spectral courtroom where malleable human beings are put to trial against the ghosts of their past. The sinister yet ethereal aura of the withered landscape transforms their journey into a metaphysical pilgrimage where a profound sense of absence hovers over the individuals. A revelation, however, is materialized through an enlightening scene that unfolds midway when the group takes a halt inside the village head Mukhtar's house, interrupting their search temporarily. Inside the blackness of this shelter appears Cemile. Cemile is Mukhtar's daughter, but the scene testifies that figuratively Cemile is also an angel who is capable of penetrating this impenetrable darkness, who radiates a transcendental warmth that reverberates deep within these emotionally complicated men. Every individuals are plagued by a profound sense of absence. For Chemal, it is the absence of yearning. For Nusrat, it is the absence of reconciliation, and it is the absence of redemption that gnaws Kenan from the inside. But a fleeting glimpse of this enthralling beauty temporarily ruptures the mournful stagnation and guilt-filled void of the night. It unleashes a tentative optimism that inundates these men of questionable morality. Noticeable is the fact that this angelic charm of Cemile immediately triggers Kenan's repentance, a mellow yet extremely powerful act which erases the earlier absence of a humanized context to define his character. Once Upon a Time in Anatolia holds a special place in Ceylan's oeuvre because it harbors a suppressed possibility to deal with the seemingly unendurable absence, a hope of witnessing a beautiful sunrise amidst pitch darkness.